Over the weekend, my husband Graham and I went strawberry picking. We do this most years, and although this year it was a bit different as we had to get tickets so that social distancing could be maintained, it was wonderful to be out in the open in a strawberry field, albeit in cloudy conditions and while it was blowing a gale. Apart from going out for a walk locally, this was also the first time that we'd gone out to do something together in 3 months, so it held a bit more significance than strawberry picking usually does. Graham always picks faster than I do, and I'm usually very competitive by nature, but this time I didn't try to compete. This time I wanted to be aware of each moment and of everything that was going on around me. I took time to notice the sounds and the smells, to observe the insects and birds, to see what other pickers were doing, noting the ones who were eating the strawberries as they picked them, and especially to pay attention to the strawberries themselves. I may be doing him a disservice, but I have the impression each year that Graham is always on the quest for the perfect strawberry. This time I noticed that the ones that seemed to be biggest or to have the most conventional strawberry shape were often not ripe, or when you turned them round to look at the other side, had a bit missing as the wildlife had been at them. I was drawn to the ones this year that were hiding under the leaves, or the ones that were a bit on the small side or rather wonky looking but beautifully ripe nonetheless. It may sound a bit strange, but there was something very spiritual for me about the strawberry picking this year. If you like, it was a Julian of Norwich moment, where I saw and sensed the whole universe and the extent of God's love in one small strawberry held between my fingers. I find it remarkable to think about the creation and formation of each strawberry. Variations in size, shape and colour only add broadness and depth to my perception of what a strawberry is, a thought that has extra potency in the context of the news over the last couple of weeks of the murder of George Floyd. It seems incomprehensible that there are still, unfortunately, a significant number of people in the world who see difference in colour as a diminishment and not as a means of celebration and enrichment of the diversity of our planet. More broadly speaking, we often find it difficult to embrace and cherish the wonkiness of the human race. While very few people would admit to perfection out loud, there is often something within us that readily feels that we are better than somebody else. We're generally quick to point out the imperfections we perceive in others, and much slower to recognise those or similar traits within ourselves. It's almost as though we want other people to lose their wonkiness and imperfections before we're prepared to engage with them. Our quest to find perfect people, or to only mix with people who are as perfect as we think we are, is a big problem. As followers of Jesus, we should be different, but often we're not different enough. And if you've ever been on the sharp end of any kind of conflict or disagreement within the church, which often arises simply because we can't tolerate difference and we don't know how to live with otherness, then you'll know how nasty and painful that can be. John Wesley talked about Christian perfection as a state towards which followers of Jesus need to strive. The Holy Spirit works in us and challenges us and helps us to change our attitudes to others. The Holy Spirit helps us to be more loving, more patient, more generous, more willing to accept difference, and more aware of the things that unite us rather than those which divide us. And that's an ongoing work that we need to collaborate with over a lifetime. Fear of difference and the quest for perfection can easily render us motionless. I think as church we often get stuck because of this. We want to give the perfect impression. We don't want people to see what we're really like. We stay on a superficial level because we don't want to admit that we have problems and struggles. We want to give the impression of wholeness, that we've got our act together and nothing is broken. And this is often why people are generally not terribly keen to explore what following Jesus is all about. Because all too often we, the church, give this kind of fake image of respectability and togetherness in all senses of the word, and that we are doing fine. Yet I think that if we were more willing to acknowledge our fragility and brokenness and our need of help, then we could actually begin to have some honest conversations with the world around us about who we are and who they are. And we could come to some deeper understanding of what it means for all of us to be lovingly created and overwhelmingly cherished by God. There's a thing that Brian McLaren wrote about the church's fellowship that I've often quoted. He says, "It's for scarred people and for scared people, and for people who want to believe but aren't sure how or what to believe. When we come together just as we are, we begin to rise again, to believe again, to hope again, to live again. Through fellowship, a little locked room becomes the biggest space in the world. And in that space of fellowship, the Holy Spirit fills us like a deep breath of fresh air." So I think it's about time we got real and embraced our own imperfections as well as the wonkiness of others, so that together we could open ourselves up to the transformative touch and life-giving breath of the Holy Spirit. One final thing about strawberries. Whether perfect looking or a bit odd, they seem to me to be a generous fruit. They have their seeds on the outside ready to share and spread and grow, ready to show the world even more about what strawberries are like. I love the idea of this. It's left me pondering, how can I, as a follower of Jesus, carry the seeds of the Holy Spirit not just deeply within me, but also more on the surface, ready to share and spread and grow? How can the abundance and generosity of the strawberry plant influence the way I live my life today, so that I can be more of a blessing to everyone I encounter? Plenty of things to think about as I go and cut myself another slice of pavlova.